graduated from high school in the 60s, and my dream at that time is I went in a convent. And my idea was to serve God and to serve his people. And in the convent, I went to Appalachia. And in Appalachia, I worked with a priest who was a phenomenal artist, my first exposure to a phenomenal artist. And he would make design woodworking. That's where the woodworking kind of got into my soul. And he designed furniture, got the people from the mountains who didn't have jobs because the mines closed, and taught them to do woodworking and to use their natural resources, which were in the mountains, wood, and they made fantastic furniture, and then they sold the furniture through the Catholic Church system. And what they asked me to do was to figure out what the women could do. Well, I found out that the women taught me, because what we did is we went into the woods. We made baskets with natural stuff. We made corn husk dolls. We made wreaths and all this kind of stuff. And then we also sold them through the same channel that he was selling his furniture for. As life would have it, I left the convent because I decided I wanted a family. But that was in my head all the time. I want to do something like that. Let's find some place where I can do that, where I live. Now, I wasn't living in Appalachia anymore, but I wanted to still do something like that. God put somebody fantastic, I was going to say this, anyway, in my life, which was my husband, who loved ministry and people and service as much as I did. I'm sorry he passed away, and I still cry. Anyway, he wanted me to do my dream. And so we kept thinking about, how can I do my dream? How can I do what I need to do? And he kept encouraging me to not give up on it, to keep thinking what it would look like and what we could do. A job opened, that he worked for Lutheran Social Services, and a job opened up there. That was called Operation Self-Help. And what I did in Operation Self-Help is I did a food co-op, which I went around to all the churches, and we did food. I don't know if you're, too many of you remember food co-ops. I don't know if Brenda does, but anyway, I would buy food wholesale, lunch meats and all that, and vegetables and fruits at a lower price, and then people in the churches would give me an order, and I would fill it and take it back to all the churches. And I did that to a lot of churches in the Dayton area. I also insulated attics. If you can imagine, there were a lot of people who were losing money with, cost of utilities. So we partnered, the Lutheran Church partnered with DP&L, and I did insulation in people's houses that needed it. Anyway, Roger said, this is the time. Go pitch your idea. Self-help. Go pitch your idea to Lutheran Social Services. So I did. The way they accepted my idea is, if you can find a place to do it, and if you can find the money to do it, and if you really want to do it on your own, fine, go ahead and do it, and you can put our name on top of it. And so I started going to every church I could find, every place I could find to house a place that would make arts, did woodworking, because I still had that sawdust. And once it gets in you, you can't get rid of that sawdust, okay? So I still wanted to do woodworking, and at that time, I really didn't know how to do art. As you think of pictures, I sewed like crazy. Sharon, I love to sew. And I knitted, I crocheted, I did a bunch of that, making wreaths. I could do any craft, but I was not what I considered a artist. I couldn't sit down and draw something. I would draw stick people, okay? And that was my extent of art. But I could do all that other stuff, and that other stuff could sell. So Lutheran Social Services, with their head on, I found a place for us to house our first Week Care Arts, and it was at Rosie Miller Recreation Center, which is right down the street. It's been torn down. But I worked in their wood shop, and I found a lot of men who wanted to get dirty and use that sawdust too. And I worked in a closet. They gave me a closet to work in. So every night, though, when I got finished working with people, I had to take everything home with me. So everything went back into my van, went back into my living room. And then I sold the woodworking and everything else at home parties. The people that came to me, however, to We Cure, I say me because We Cure Arts is kind of like my soul, so I say me. But came to We Cure Arts were not the people you're serving right now. They were people who were unemployed. They were newly unemployed people who had lost their jobs because at that time, which was 80, 83, 82, there was a very high unemployment rate in the Dayton area. Not only was there a high unemployment rate, there was a high incident of men beating on their wives and children because they didn't have jobs. They were frustrated, they couldn't get a job, and they took it out on their families. And my idea was to get these men out of the home and let them bang on a hammer and on a piece of wood and saw instead of on their families. And that's who came to us. We were there for 1 year. During that year, I searched for another place. We found another place on Waterville, 610 Waterville. It was an old house, 1,000 square feet. But you have to understand, if I'm coming from a closet in my living room, 1,000 square feet seemed like a huge facility. It was not handicap accessible, but remember, I wasn't serving handicap. I was serving people who were just unemployed. However, when those doors opened, and we opened those doors with the help of Lutheran Brotherhood, not Lutheran Social Services. They didn't put a dime in it. But I went to Lutheran Brotherhood, which was a insurance company, and I asked them to fund us. And what they did is they sent out letters to everybody that had a policy. People gave money, and Lutheran Brotherhood raised enough money to completely renovate that building. Okay, they knocked out a wall. It was not a really good building, but it was good for me. It was much better than a closet. I did this all the time with a secret partner who was Donna Berkeley. Donna and I went to art classes together at night and ate a lot of ice cream after those classes because we went to Friendly's every time we had a class together and would talk, and I shared my dream. Donna was always my secret partner. I worked it, she volunteered right beside me. She was always my partner in everything. So she was in from the very beginning. So we were at Waterville, steps going all which ways, but who came to We Cure Arts were the people you're serving now. The people that came to my door and opened my door and said, "Can you help me?" were people who were chronically unemployed. They were your people that had head injuries and couldn't do what they did prior to the head injury.
Chris Turner.
Please?
Chris Turner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there were a lot of it. Then the school system found out about us, the Dayton school system, and they asked if we would do something with their students. Then a lot of the mental health places in Dayton found out about us and started asking if we would take people. One thing I could not do is say no. If somebody needed We Cure Arts, I took them. If somebody came in crying, and we had one little lady who walked up and down our street, Waterville, every day, and she'd look in the window. She was old, but she looked in the window, and then she'd walk on. And the next day, she stayed longer and longer and longer, and finally I said, "Why don't you just come in instead of standing outside looking in?" And she said, "Well, I don't think this is a place for me." And I said, "Well, if you look every single day and you go by, you might as well come in." So she started to come in, and she ended up being one of our longest clients. She lived right down the street there. And those days you did not have to be referred. You understand? I just opened the doors. Okay? I wanted people who needed us to be there, and that's who came. So she started coming. And she stayed forever. She used to pick up the phone she would say hello, and if I was busy doing something, she sang on the phone so that it was a fancy place. She said it's got to be a fancy place. So she would sing until I got to the phone. Okay, she saw Roger one time and she said, "Oh, he was such a hunk." She called him a hunk, and she really liked Roger. She said, "You're lucky I'm so old, or he'd be mine." You know, those kinds of things every day. She couldn't paint worth a lick, but you know, she was fun. She kept her spirits up, but she loved to paint, and she did put paint to wood. She did put paint to brush, but I don't think I ever sold anything of hers because it wasn't really all that terrific. But and she had a lot of family, and she said they'll buy anything, so she would sell it to her family. Then I knew I had to give money back to them, so we developed a percentage rate where I could keep enough to buy the wood again, and the rest went to them. I never made a dime. Half the time I wasn't paid. Donna was always there. She was my volunteer Monday, Wednesday. We were open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She always was there working with clients, and we had a woodworker all the time. At one time, she was even, I hired her as my woodworker. So she did woodworking for a while. So, and just to move it forward, in 1999, we decided we needed a bigger location.